Okay, welcome aboard for another Boaties breakfast. Very cold morning here on the Gold Coast. I've had the diesel heater going for most of the morning, so that's keeping me pretty warm. But welcome wherever you are. I think it's pretty cold down in Melbourne. If there's anyone from down there, but yeah, we're going to do a bit of work on IALA on the marking system for when you're running up channels and things like that. We had a bit of a request for that. So yeah, it's I met a few people at the boat show last week, which was good. It was good fun. I think I talked about that last week, but it was a pretty good boat show. I just can't believe all of the electronics that are around at the moment. Even turn your lights on and off on a touch screen. So it's pretty crazy, but yeah, it was a good boat show. But anyway, that's the end of that for another year. But we're going to talk about the Buoyage system. So I've just done a few slides up, so we'll have a look at them, and I'll talk my way through it. And hope we get a few people on the side there. Okay. So it's a system of Buoyage. So when we come into an area where there's marked channels, it's a good idea to know what these marks are telling you, I guess. And there's two systems worldwide. There's System A and System B, or Area A and Area B. And you can see that we are in Area A. The green area on this map is Area A. So Australia falls under Area A. Of course, the Yanks have always got to be different, so they're Area B, but there's a little bit of Asia there that's Area B as well. So if you're traveling up into those areas, it'd be good to know what that system's telling you as well. And virtually the only difference between the two systems is that the lateral marks that we'll talk about first are transversed in System B, but in area, we'll talk about Area A. And here going Mark, and we'll talk about Area A. And but be aware that there's the two systems, Area A and B. But if you're working in Area A, we'll talk about that this morning. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is lateral marks. Now, lateral marks mark the edges of a channel. So they'll mark where the deep water is in the channel. So they put the marks on the edge of any deep water or dredged area. And the lateral marks you'll be most familiar with are port and starboard lateral marks. The red and green marks you'll find on the edge of the channel. Now, before we talk about lateral marks, it's a good idea to talk about the direction of buoyage. Excuse me. Oh, the tea's nice this morning. Pretty cool. Okay, so on a chart, you'll find a symbol like this, and that will point out what the direction of buoyage is. On a lot of charts, you'll find that it's all purple. That green dot you can see there is two purple dots at the edge of the arrow. But that indicates what the direction of buoyage is. So if you're traveling in that direction, it means you're going to be traveling in the direction of buoyage. And this is the difference between System A and System B. If you're traveling in the direction of buoyage, in System A that we work under, it'll put port hand lateral marks, or the red marks, on your left-hand side or port side, and it'll put green or starboard lateral marks on your starboard side. If you go to System B, it's reversed. So that's the only difference in the two systems. So when we're traveling in the direction of buoyage, and this is the chart symbol you'll find, when we're traveling in that direction, you'll put the red marks on your left-hand side, the green marks on your right-hand side. Of course, if you, now, how do you work out, if you haven't got a chart symbol, how do you work out? Usually, I'll go to another slide here. If you're traveling into port, usually, well, always, they mark the channels in the direction that the port is. So if this was the port on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see that the channel's marked with red or port hand lateral marks on the port side of the channel, and green lateral marks on the right-hand side of the channel as you're heading into port. So a good little ditty to remember is, if you're heading to port, keep port to port, and that sort of solves that problem for you. So if you are heading into port, which is usually the direction of Buoyage, then you'll keep the port hand markers on your port side, and of course then you'll keep the green markers on your starboard side. If you're heading out of port, so if you're heading from the left-hand side, the right-hand side of this chart to the left-hand side, you're heading out of port, you're heading against the direction of Buoyage, so then you have to transverse the markers. So you'll keep all of, morning Jerome, how are you going? You'll keep all of the red marks on your right-hand side and the green marks on your left-hand side as you're heading out of port. There's a couple of other marks shown on this little slide too. There's a safe water mark, an isolated danger mark, and a special mark, and we're going to discuss them a bit later on. So when you're heading into port, keep port to port. Okay, so all the red marks. Now the red marks are pretty easy to identify. They're red for a start. Sometimes with the shag sitting on them, they're sort of a pinky colour, but are usually red. They've got a cylindrical top shape, or more often than not, you'll find a square mark on the top of them. They can either be a buoy or they can be a pillar or spar, but with a cylindrical or a square top shape. The green lateral marks, the starboard lateral marks, are conical in shape with the apex pointing up, and if it's on a spar, you'll have a cone at the top of it, or more often than not, it'll be a triangular shape on the top of it with the apex pointing up. They're green on the starboard side, of course, and red on the port side. At night time, you'll find that they can have any type of characteristic. The light on them can have any type of characteristic apart from a group flashing 2+1. So that's the only characteristic you won't see. So if you're coming into a port at night and you see a red flashing light, you're going to be pretty sure that that's a port hand lateral mark. If you see a green flashing light, conversely, you're pretty sure that's going to be a starboard hand lateral mark. And the characteristic of the light, when they're marking along channel, they'll usually mark the lights with different characteristics. So you might get one, say the first one you come to might be flashing at say two flashes per 10 seconds. The next one might be flashing one flash every 15 seconds. And by doing this, it can, you can work out what mark you're looking at. At night time, especially, it's sometimes quite difficult to work out what mark you're actually looking at, because everything sort of gets a little bit compressed. But by using the characteristics of the light and saying, oh, well, that one's flashing every 5 seconds, that one's flashing twice every 10 seconds, you can work out which is the closest one to you. And that's pretty important if you're navigating at night. So the other type of marks you're going to come to, sorry. So the other type of marks you're going to come to are what are called preferred channel marks. And the preferred channel mark is the same thing. The port hand preferred channel mark is still a red mark, but it'll have a green band around it. So that's telling you that the preferred channel is to the starboard of that mark. And conversely, a starboard hand lateral preferred channel mark will have a red band around it. So that's telling you that if the channel splits there, the preferred channel is to the left, to the port side of that starboard mark. If I go back to this one here, you can see there's a couple of preferred channel marks there. So we've got straight lateral marks on that side of the channel. When we get to here, this channel would split. There'd be a channel running this way, maybe a channel running up there, and you would maybe see more port lateral marks along this part of the channel marking that part of it. But these marks are actually telling you that the preferred channel is to the starboard and the port of those two marks. So preferred channel marks. Now, all preferred channel marks are group flashing 2+1, so that's the only light characteristic you'll find on a preferred channel mark, group flashing 2+1. Okay, how you going, Richard? How are you, mate? Cup of tea's good. Bet you're glad to be off the hard in this weather, Richard. All right. Now let's have a look at some of the other marks now. So they're the lateral marks. Anyone got any questions at all on lateral marks? They're pretty. As long as you know what the direction of Buoyage is, it's pretty easy to use them. It is harder at night time because you've got to work out what light you're looking at. You haven't got anything else to give you a hint, so you're really just working off the lights, and it's pretty important to know what mark you're looking at, and that's where the characteristic of the lights they put on them comes into play. So that'll help us get into a few different places at night time. Okay, the next type of mark we're going to talk about is a safe water mark. Now, you can see on this little diagram here, this is a buoyed area, so this is a channel we've moved into, and at the start of the channel, not all the time, but sometimes they'll have a safe water mark, or they're sometimes called a fairway beacon. If you travel through the Sandy Strait, or if you head from Bundy down to the Sandy Strait, you'll quite often hear them mention when you get to the fairway beacon, log off with Bundaberg. So when you get to the start of the Sandy Strait, there's a safe water mark or a fairway beacon where the buoyage starts to lead you through the Sandy Strait. And this is the main use in Australia for these safe water marks, is to lead you into an area that is buoyed. Okay, so safe water marks, it's indicating there's safe water all around it, but it could be a bit of a hint that you're coming into an area where you've got to be a bit careful because there's going to be buoyage to take you up a channel. So safe water mark is on a red and white striped buoy or pillar, and the stripes are vertical. So the vertical stripes on the buoy or the pillar. There'll be a top mark which is a red sphere or a red circle, red disc. And at light, it's not a red light on the top of them. At night time, they'll have a white isophasing or occulting light. Now, an isophasing light is, iso means equal, so an isophasing light is a light that's on at about, the exact amount that it's off. So it's the same amount of light as dark with an isophasing light. And an occulting light has more light than dark. So the light will be on a long time and off for a short time. So they're pretty easy to pick up, and they're always white lights, not red lights. They're a white light. They can be a long flashing 10-second light as well. So one long flash in 10 seconds, or a morse, which is a short one and then a long one. And sometimes they'll have a Raycon. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a Raycon, but if you're using radar, a lot of times they'll put a Raycon transmitter on the pillar, especially if there's big shipping using it, and the Raycon paints a dot and a dash on your radar screen. So that's something to look out for at night time as well. So safe water marks. Okay. Everyone happy with that so far? All right, so we're coming into, I did a bit of night navigation on that trip when I brought the boat down from Airlie Beach a couple of weeks ago, and that was interesting to say the least. Got on the boat and we headed off, and when it started getting dark, I said, I'll turn the radar on and warm it up. Oh, okay, and turned it on. Of course, the radar didn't work, so we didn't have radar, which was a bit of a downer, but we had a few problems with the boat as well. In Bundaberg, we'd lost steering, and we had to find some ATF to top the steering up, and we ended up finding it. It was a Saturday night in the middle of a long weekend, so we were in a bit of trouble. But we found someone with some ATF, and we topped the steering up and got going. But it put us a a bit later than what we wanted to get there. So we were trying to get to Sheridan Flat by, I think it was 10:30 for the high tide, and we didn't leave Bundy till about 9:30. So by the time we got to the fairway mark at the Sandy Strait, we were way behind the 8-ball. So we were pushing it a bit. We kept the speed up. We weren't doing our 18, but I think we were doing 12 or 14 knots, and I was navigating just on the buoys and the lights, and we got through all right. It was a bit touchy, but yeah, it was interesting. It's always a good feeling. I think that one of the best feelings you get if you're doing any coastal nav, if you come across a place where you've never been before, you have to navigate in. Maybe the weather's going to change and you've decided, well, you've got to get in here at night time, and you use the marks and the buoys to get in, and you're good enough to get in an anchor. When you drop the anchor, it's a pretty good feeling knowing that you've had the skills to get yourself into that area and out of trouble. And there's all sorts of marks you can use. There's sectored lights, and there's lateral beacons, and some of the other ones we're going to discuss today. So let's keep on going with the beacons that you might find navigating, and we'll talk about a bit of night nav later on as well. Okay, so we've talked about safe water marks. Another mark you're going to come across is an isolated danger mark. Now, an isolated danger mark is on a structure that is black over red over black. And at the top of that structure, there'll be two black spheres, or two black circles, if you like. It is indicating a very isolated danger. So it'll be a rock that is very small. They don't put an isolated danger mark on a bit of reef because it might cover a bit of area, but if there's one rock in just one place, they could mark that. They could mark a broken off, I've seen them marking a broken off jetty pile that was underwater. They'll put an isolated danger mark on it. So any isolated type of danger, they'll put an isolated danger mark on. Now, the light on this mark is a white flashing light as well, and it's group flashing 2. So you can remember that because there's two black balls on the top of it, two black spheres, and two flashing lights, white lights. Can anyone tell me why these danger marks and the fairway beacon are white lights? Can anyone tell me why they use white lights on those? Something for you to think about. But you'll find group flashing 2 white lights on isolated. That's the only mark you'll find is group flashing 2 on the top of them. You'd think some of these danger things they put a red light on, but always a white light. So that's a question out there for you guys. Okay, so that's an isolated danger mark. Either could be on a pillar or on a buoy, and you see them around occasionally. Another mark you'll come across is a special mark. Now, you see these quite a bit in Queensland, and in Queensland, yeah, no, Mark, not right, but good try. Okay, I'll tell you what it is in a minute. I'll let everyone else have a go. So we've asked the question, why do they use a white light on isolated danger marks and fairway lights? Okay, a special mark, this will have a yellow light on the top of it, and it's got a yellow cross. So it'll be a buoy or a spar with a yellow cross on the top. It's all painted yellow, and the light on this one is yellow. So flashing yellow light, or group flashing 4. So 4 flashes in a row, and that's why that'll indicate a special mark. Now, in Queensland especially, special marks indicate an alternate channel. So if you're navigating through the Broadwater or the Sandy Strait and the channel comes to a fork, they usually put a special mark right on the spit that that fork forms. So if you come across one of these yellow special marks here in Australia, it really does indicate a break in the channel. Here you go, Bevan. Well, good on you, Bevan. It's well done, and you probably brushed up on a few skills by doing that, I reckon. Yeah, first night sailing experience felt great. Yeah, look, guys, I love it at night. I don't mind travelling at night time because you tend to you tend to be able to see everything. If there's any other vessels out there, you can see them. And if you're traveling into a buoyed area, the lights are giving you a pretty good indication of what's going on. So nighttime, and look, at nighttime on this boat, we only travel quite slowly as well. We're only doing 6 or 7 knots, so it's good. I must admit, we were doing 17 knots across Harvey Bay in that boat I delivered the other week, and you know, I'm glad it wasn't whale season, put it that way, because you really are travelling pretty quick. And we were doing that to try and get the tide, but we did slow down a bit when we got to the Sandy Strait, but we still pushed it a bit going through. Yeah, but it is good, and yeah, I don't really mind it. And if you travel at night, the other benefit of it is sometimes is that it's a bit calmer. You usually get sort of better weather at night time. And if I'm not travelling all night, I don't mind getting up at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning and heading off and making a few miles before it gets light. I think it's sort of a good way of doing it. Okay, let's go on with our marks. And we still haven't answered that question. I'll go through it in a minute of why they make isolated danger marks and fairway beacons white lights on them, why they're white lights on them. Okay, so alternate channel in Queensland. So if I go back to some of my other slides here, this one here, you can see there's a special mark here. That wouldn't be day night. Well, it could be. Usually, if you came to it, this one here is indicating a preferred channel this way, and there'd be another channel there. In Queensland, they'd usually put a special mark right on that spit of land. So when you came up to that special mark, you'd either go that way or that way. In this case, they're saying the preferred channel is between these two buoys here. But more often than not, especially in the Broadwater, they won't do anything like that. You probably wouldn't. I can't remember seeing any of these marks in the Broadwater. I think there's a couple out in Moreton Bay for the ships to use, and that's where they usually are used. But for smaller vessels, they don't use these marks very much at all. But what they do, if there's a break in the channel here, if there's a channel going that way and a channel going that way, you'd find they'd put this special mark right on the spit of land that comes out from the two channels. So you could either go to the left of a right or the right of a special mark. Okay, so there's our special marks. Light at night is a flashing yellow or a group flashing 4 yellow. Okay, yeah, not right. Wrong, Richard. But they're always trying to save money. I tell you what, as far as lights go, they do it pretty easily these days with lights and that around. One near Runaway Bay, entrance off Shearwater. Okay, all right. I haven't seen that one, but I know there's a couple to mark. I know there's a couple out in the bay that the ships use for preferred channels. Yeah, and Richard, I know that the lights that they've got now with the batteries and the solar panels and all that, it's a lot easier for them to put lights on these marks, and it does make it a bit easier for us sailors, because a lot of the lights, a lot of the channel markers are lit now, whereas back in the day they wouldn't have been, because it was with acetylene lights and things like that, it was too hard to light them. So there are a few more lights on channel marks now. Okay, what's our next one? A special mark. So an alternate channel, it'll mark that, especially in Queensland they do that. They don't tend to do it in many other states, but in Queensland it's definitely the way they mark an alternate channel. Other things you'll find, maybe an underwater pipeline or cable. I've seen them placed on underwater pipelines and cables. I've seen them used on a dredged area or a boundary, a swing basin. So if they've dredged an area for the bigger ships to use, they'll put special marks on the edge of that dredged area. That's how they define that area for the ships. A pipe outlet, I've quite often seen them where there might be a pipe outlet that's underwater at high tide, and they'll put a special mark on the pipe outlet. If you're unsure about what the special mark is telling you, have a look at your chart. That's the best way to do it. Just check out the chart and see what's going on there. So that's special marks. All right. The next set of marks we're going to talk about are the cardinal system, the cardinal marks. So we're going away from our laterals and special marks and isolated danger marks. And there's a way that they mark. There's a way that they mark dangers using the cardinal system. Now, the cardinal system is referring to the compass. So you need a compass to be able to use this system, or a chart plotter, of course. But it's a little bit complicated because there's a few different marks to learn, and I'm going to teach you a good way of learning them. Okay, so a north cardinal mark is indicating that the safe water is to the north of whatever the problem is. So this is a sunken vessel here, and look, they don't usually put 4 cardinal marks around a wreck. They'd be more likely to put an isolated danger mark on that. And you don't, there are places where you do see cardinal marks. I know in the Whitsundays there's a bit of reef there where they've got a cardinal mark on each part of it coming out of Shute Harbour. And I think there's a few places in Moreton where you might see them too. But more often than not, you'll only find one cardinal mark marking maybe the edge of the channel, or telling you where the navigable water is. But when you're using cardinal marks, a north cardinal mark is on either a buoy or a spar. It has 2 cones or triangles with the apexes up on the top of it. Okay, so that's pointing up to north. That's easy to remember. And the spar is black over yellow. Okay, then we'll go to the south cardinal mark. That has 2 triangles or cones on the top of it with the apexes pointing down to the south, if you like. And that's indicating a south cardinal mark. And the spar is yellow over black. All right, so that's north and south. They're pretty easy to remember because north the tips are facing up, south the tips are facing down. So that's north and south. Now, east and west, the top marks on an east cardinal mark, it's 2 cones with the apexes apart. And I remember that east, it's a bit of an egg shape. So I say E, egg, an east cardinal mark. If you can remember the egg shape of the top mark, that'll give away that it's an east cardinal mark. And the structure is black over yellow over black. And then a west cardinal mark, it looks a bit like a W if you look at it some way. So it's 2 cones with the apexes pointing each other. And that's on a structure that is yellow over black over yellow. So a little bit to remember, but you can break it down. If you can remember that a north cardinal mark, the arrows point up, the cones point up, and they also point to the black part of the structure. So in all of these, you can see that the arrows on the cones point to the black part of the structure. So on a north cardinal mark, it's black over yellow. South cardinal mark, it's black under yellow because the cones are facing down. And on an east cardinal mark, it's black, yellow, black. So the cones are pointing to the black parts of the structure. And on a west cardinal mark, it's yellow over yellow. The cones are pointing to the black band in the middle of it. So that's how you identify the marks. And why they paint these structures or colour these structures is because sometimes the top marks get blown off or fall off from lack of maintenance. But the structure they're on, if you know what the colour code is, you'll know that the structure is an east, west, north or south cardinal mark. Now, that's all great, but at night time, this is when it's probably pretty important to know what these cardinal marks are telling you. And don't forget, all of these marks are telling you where the deep water is. So an east cardinal mark is telling you the safe water is to the east of whatever the danger is. A north cardinal mark is telling you that the safe water is to the north of it. Now, they're all marked at night with a quick or very quick flashing light. So any light that's flashing pretty quickly, they'll flash twice as quickly as a lateral mark will. And a very quick light will be probably even faster than that. So any light you see, now these are white lights again. Again, we're using white lights. And that question's still out there. Why are they using white lights for these dangers? Okay, so a north cardinal mark, the best way to remember these at night time is if you can remember a clock face and north being the top. So north is 12. The north cardinal mark, it doesn't flash 12 times. It flashes continuously. But at the 12 o'clock position, a north cardinal mark is continuously quick flashing or very quick flashing white light. If you come round to the east cardinal mark, it's at 3 o'clock position, quick flashing 3. So very quick or quick flashing 3 at 10 seconds. So if you see a light that flashes quickly 3 times, that will be an east cardinal mark indicating safe water to the east of it. A south cardinal mark at the 6 o'clock position flashes quick flashing 6 times in 15 seconds, or very quick 6 at 10 seconds. But any light you see that is quick flashing 6 times, that will be a south cardinal mark. Now, they're a lot easier to identify because the south cardinal mark, they give you 6 quick flashes and then 1 long flash at the end of it. So any light you see like that is a south cardinal mark. And that's the only cardinal mark that gives you that long flash at the end. So it identifies safe water to the south of that mark. And then conversely, a west cardinal mark is at 9 o'clock position on the clock face. It's quick flashing 9 or very quick flashing 9, a white light again. So if you can remember those, you remember the clock face, if you remember that the cones point to the black section on the spar, that'll get the colours worked out, and that'll get the lights worked out for you. So that's how you use cardinal marks. Hope everyone's happy with that. Ask any questions as I go along. Okay, navigating at night, just a little bit of navigation at night. As I said, I don't mind travelling at night. I like night navigation because there's only one instance I can think of where I've been out there and I've spotted something on the radar and couldn't identify a light on it. And I don't know what it was. I think it might have been someone fishing where they shouldn't have been, but it was a really good paint on the radar and no lights. But that's the only one occasion in 20 years of mucking around on the coast, or more, 40 years of mucking around on the coast, where I haven't been able to identify a radar paint with a light. So yeah, usually I feel pretty safe. And a lot of people talk about submerged containers and things like that. I've never come across them. I guess whales may be becoming a bit of a problem these days too. Yeah, I don't think that, you know, I think the old whales sort of get out of your way pretty well. I don't know. You see the horror stories, and I wonder sometimes, but I still feel pretty comfortable travelling at night, and it's quite a good time to be out there. Everything is a bit more defined. It's easier to see. You can usually see, especially lighthouses, lights marking the coast. You can pick them up from a long way off, and it's a good way to fix your position and know where you're going. So right, let's have a look at what we should be aware of when travelling at night, and might make it a bit more comfortable for some people. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is be familiar with your light characteristics. So all of this I've taught you today, if you can come really familiar with it and you see a light that's white flashing 3 times in 10 seconds, straight away you're going to know that that's an east cardinal mark and you've got to keep to the east of it. So if you can do it that quickly, that'll put you in pretty good stead for navigating at night, especially around the Broadwater. There's quite a few of these cardinal marks in the Broadwater. Yeah, and I agree with you, Mark, and they worry me sometimes. But I remember coming into the Sandy Strait into Harvey Bay once and getting up near Urangan, and I wasn't travelling quick. I was only probably doing 6 or 7 knots. And next thing, about 20 or 30 metres in front of me, a light came on, and it was a guy in a tinny, and he just shone his torch at me. But he didn't have any sort of light on at all, so you got to be aware of that. And he wasn't painting much on the radar either, so that gave me a bit of a scare. But would have been scarier for him if I'd hit him, I guess. But yeah, you do get some people out there without lights on. And I've noticed lately too, you see the jet skis pushing the envelope a bit, and they're only supposed to be out in daylight hours, and you see them sort of coming in at night time, and I wonder how they get away with it. But be aware of it. Anyway, travelling at night, make sure you're familiar with lights and light characteristics and what they're telling you. Be familiar with your radar, and a good way of learning how to use your radar is go out during the day, use your radar and see, and you can look at the landmass it's showing you, and you'll get a good idea of what the radar is telling you. So practice using your radar in daylight hours, and that should make you a lot more comfortable at using it during the night. And there's obviously excuse me, there's obviously some good courses out there. If you get on YouTube, I'm sure you'll find some courses on using radar. Make sure you turn off all your cabin lights. Make sure your night vision is working properly, and you won't have any night vision if you've got any cabin lights off. So turn off all of your cabin lights and dim your plotter and your instrument lights. There'll be a way of dimming your plotter and any instruments, and sometimes instruments don't have dimmers on them, but what you can do is just get a towel and throw it over the dash and take that light away. And if you can get the cabin to be pretty dark, you'll find that your night vision is a lot better, and it's amazing what you can pick out if you let your night vision establish. And sometimes it'll take 5 minutes or so for your eyes to adjust to the dark, and it's really something that you want to maintain. So get all the cabin lights down, get your instrument lights down as well. Travel at a reduced speed. Definitely, if you can travel slower, things aren't going to come up on you as quick, and you've got more time to react. So get your speed down when you're traveling at night. Navigate well ahead of your current position, and it's important to do this at any time, especially when you're traveling in channels and using the lateral marks, but especially at night time. So you're going to be looking at green and red lights, and there's that many of them sometimes that you'll sometimes miss a bend because you're looking at a green light and thinking it's the next one when it's 2 away. So it's quite easy to cut corners. So make sure you're navigating well ahead of where you are at the moment. And by doing that, looking at the chart, looking at the lights, looking at the light characteristics, and the chart should, if you're using a chart plotter, you may have to hover over the top of the light with your cursor, and that should give you the light characteristics. So if you're navigating on laterals coming into a channel, if you do that, it'll tell you what the characteristics of that light is, and then you should be able to identify that light by its characteristic and say, oh, that's the next one, or that's the one after it, or whatever. So do that to navigate well ahead of where you are. Use binoculars. I don't know if anyone knows it, but you can use binoculars at night, and sometimes that'll, if you've got a couple of lights and you're not sure what part of the channel they're defining, if you use binoculars, sometimes it'll bring that into focus, and you can see it, and you can see the lights a lot better. So it's another way of working out where you are. Avoid using spotlights. I hate turning a spotlight on. Sometimes you do have to, but as soon as you turn a spotlight on, you lose your night vision. So it's gone and it'll take you 5 minutes to get it back. So be aware that I'd rather stay in the dark and do it slowly, and you know, just try and maintain your night vision. Okay, that's about it. So anyone got any questions on what we've covered this morning? I hope it's been interesting to you. I'm probably covering a lot of stuff you already know, because it's something you learn pretty quickly when you're out there boating. Okay, what about the white light? We haven't covered that. Why do they make danger marks? So all of the cardinal marks are white. Isolated danger marks white. Group flashing 2. A fairway mark is white as well. And why they mark them with white lights are, you can see a white light at a further distance, than you can see any other type of light. So the greens and reds and yellows, you can't see them as far away as you can see a white light. So a white light at night really, well, it's not always indicating danger, but group flashing 2 is indicating danger, and any of the other cardinal lights, the group flashing 3 or 9 or 6 with a long one, or the continuously quick flashing group flashing lights, are all indicating danger. So that's why they mark them with a white light, because you can see them for further away, a bit more standoutish. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for this time around. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to post now. I think, Mark, you wanted a bit of a walkthrough of Peggy-Anne, and I haven't done one. I had a look back. I did have a walkthrough posted up there, but it's quite an old one. So I was painting last week and thought, well, I'll grab the camera out, and I've done another walkthrough. So I'll post that right now. As soon as I finish this, I'll get that up on YouTube, and you guys maybe be able to enjoy that as well. Thanks for being with us this morning. Okay, thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks, the Shieldsy. it's been fun talking to you guys. Don't forget, try and promote me too. Try and get other people coming to our breakfast. It's good. You know, I hate sitting here talking to myself, but even you guys, it's good talking to you, and it's good meeting you too. So I don't know. I've got a bit more painting to do on the boat. I'm just about at the end of it now. I'm going to put a plastic handrail on this thing too. I'm sick of painting wood every 3 months, and I'm going to make it easy myself. I'm going to put a recycled plastic handrail on. So I'll film that and show you doing it when I've got the job done. And once I've done that, I'm ready to cruise again. So I don't know where we're going to get this year. It might be just a matter of heading up into Moreton Bay and doing the river and bumming around up there a bit. But I'm really sick of being in the marina and working on the boat, so I've got to go out and use it. So that's the plan for not far away. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us this morning. It's been great, and looking forward to any comments you've got. Try and give me some more ideas for anything you want covered in future boating breakfasts, and that'd help, because I was thinking maybe we could look at vessel lights next week. But look, I'm open to anything you want to talk about. So thanks for coming on board, and we'll catch you next week. Hooroo.